Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that at least can usually... It's Sif Pop. Welcome to Sif Pop Weekly, streaming live most weekends or available to download later in your podcast feed. Unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks!
Patrons get those perks.
Ooh.
I'm your host, Aaron Dicer, and Madam, he's not Adam. It's Andrew Ormsby, ladies and gentlemen. Good to see you, man.
Hello.
Each week we'll chat about movies, television, and whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our minds. And hello to the listeners and the viewers, one and all. Welcome to a new episode of Sif Pop. We're going to have a fun time talking about a couple of actual new movies that have come out in different ways. One of them being Tenet and the other being Mulan. We've, of course, also got our buried treasure and all the fun stuff that we will continue to do. Welcome to everybody who is watching or listening live. Already throwing in some questions. Jay asks, will you guys be reviewing I'm Thinking of Ending Things at some point? And the answer to that question is, yeah, I think we will. It just came out this weekend, so it'll either be next weekend or maybe in like a members pre-show or something like that, but we'll probably talk about it at some point, maybe in a buried treasure even. But as a huge Charlie Kaufman fan, I'm sure we'll be checking that one out. Laura says hello. Hello, Laura. Lauren says hello. Hello, Lauren. Good to see you hanging out with us. And to all the others who are joining us live, it's kind of a fun experience, huh, Andrew? To kind of feel like we've got people hanging out with us, talking movies, all that kind of stuff.
We definitely took a hit when the whole pandemic started, as far as like being able to communicate and converse with the fans and stuff. But now that we're doing live videos again, you know, that it's coming back, and you know, it's feeling more like the community getting together, and you know, I'm loving it. Yeah,
it's good. In fact, my mom's in the chat. Just said your mom's listening. Just a warning. So I'm not sure what the warning is, but hey, Mom. I waved. We are excited to get into this show. I don't know that we need to wait any longer. I will say this even before we get into the review, just so you know, especially with a Nolan film, we want to be clear. We will not be spoiling it during this live show. We will record a spoilers episode that will show up in the podcast feed. So if you solely watch on YouTube, Twitch, or Periscope, and you want to know our spoiler thoughts on Tenet, you will need to subscribe to the podcast. Again, it's just Sif Pop, SIFTPOP. to do that. Or you could become a Sif Pop member and get it there in your feed as well. It works that way too. So either way works. But just wanted to give you a heads up. We will not be spoiling this during the show today. We will do a separate recording of the spoilers. It's just how we like to do it. You ready to get into this, Andrew?
Oh, let's do it.
All right. Let's talk about Tenet. Armed with just one word, Tenet. Tenet, not tenant, just in case, I wasn't clear. And fighting for the survival of the entire world, the protagonist journeys through a twilight world of international espionage on a mission that will unfold in something beyond real time. That's an interesting way to put it. Tenet is Christopher Nolan's film, who apparently has wanted this to usher back in the theater-going experience. He is very much a movie theater, big screen kind of guy. He's also a film guy. He doesn't, like digital. He wants it on celluloid, all that kind of fun stuff. It's in IMAX theaters and regular theaters, and despite my general disagreement with Christopher Nolan on the film versus digital thing, I do generally love his movies. So I'm excited to talk about this one. Andrew, what did you think? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay?
Probably no surprise. I loved it. Yeah. I wouldn't put it up there with the what I consider the highest echelon of Nolan films, but I definitely love this one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with loved it as well. And it's interesting because I was talking with somebody else about this, and with Nolan films, when you've only seen them once, the grade is almost an incomplete, right? Like when
you've only seen it once?
Yes. Oh, have you seen it more than once?
I've seen it twice.
Okay, fair enough. That'll be helpful, especially for the spoiler discussion. But it's almost like
I wouldn't count on that.
No, Andrew, I am counting on you to explain it all to me. But I think this is the important thing to bring up first when it comes to especially Nolan movies like he's made recently is I don't think they are comprehensible the first time through. And that is not a great feeling, all of it. I mean, confusion is not a fun feeling. And I was definitely confused through some of this. And it's not helped by the fact that for whatever reason, Nolan has decided that dialogue is not an important thing to be clearly understood. And it's just muffled and almost, inaudible at times. That's not the right word because it's not too quiet. It's just indistinguishable what they're saying sometimes.
Yeah.
And so because of those two things, I came away from my first experience going, I think I love it, but I kind of need to go back and watch it again to really make sure I understand what's going on. Was it generally the same experience for you?
I think that I'm pretty much going to echo a lot of what you just said. I think that Nolan likes to have some thought-provoking movies that really push your understanding of what reality is, particularly in all of his movies. You look at like Inception, Interstellar, even Prestige or Memento. There's an element to them of you're like, okay, I think I understand what's going on here. I'll definitely understand it on a second viewing. With this one, however, I think he's pushing that so far to where even after a second viewing, I'm like, I don't know if I really understand what's going on with this one. That's a negative for me, because I think that even the first time I saw Inception or Interstellar, there was a lot of like high caliber thinking or, theoretical things going on. But I understood what was trying to be said. I didn't, it wasn't like I was following step by step, but I understood what the movie was trying to do. There are parts in this movie I'm just like, I have no idea what's going on. It looks beautiful. I don't know how they did film the things they did, but it's like I'm gonna have to watch this like 3 or 4 times, and that's actually a negative for me.
I go back and forth honestly as to whether or not it's a negative, and the reason is because it depends on if you view your experience as an artistic experience or as a storytelling experience, right? Because if you view it as a storytelling experience, which movies are supposed to be, I think it is a negative because it impacts your ability on one time through to really understand the story and to really buy into what's going on. If you look at it as an artistic experience, well, art is meant to be revisited. It's meant to be to to reveal itself to you in multiple viewings. It's meant to be allegorical. It's meant to, to be all these things that Nolan movies tend to be. And I do think he walks that balance fairly well. But I feel like recently he has been off balance towards the artistic side to the detriment of the storytelling side. And so I do go back and forth as to whether or not I count that against the movie. I think for what we're doing today, where we're reviewing this movie, where we're letting people know our thoughts, where we're having a conversation about this movie, I think it has to be a negative. I don't think there's any other choice. If a movie leaves you confused, that's a negative thing. If you come away going, I didn't understand what they said, that's a negative thing. So yes, for today's conversation, I think that affects, me being on the low side of loved it, if it's going to affect my grade, right?
Yeah.
But
I don't want it to come across that I was like, oh, great, I got to go see Tenet again. Like I was like, oh, I get to go see Tenet again. Okay.
Yes.
It was like,
yeah,
because that's like really my only negative for this movie. Well, no, I have one other negative, but other than that, it's like, yeah, the rest of this is like, here's the thing with the Christopher Nolan movie, when you sit down and the movie starts, I don't know if it's Zimmer's score or the way he shoots movies or the combination of both, but you feel a scale to these movies. Even from the beginning of this one, you feel like I am watching something bigger than what I am used to seeing recently. Like you could go see like a high budget action film or whatever, but like when you sit down to watch a Nolan film, you feel it. You feel like an all encompassing like focus of like what's going on. Like I have to notice everything.
Yeah,
and I don't think that there's many directors out there like that truly appreciate like making a scale, like a movie feel bigger than what it really is.
Yeah, it is an experience unlike what you'll get from most other movies, and I think that is worth talking about. And it is not only that, but for me, an experience that I love. I love the way Nolan's brain works. I have always had this predilection towards I was going to say deep thinking, but it's more intricate thinking, right? It's more this idea that you think about how things work in a way that is outside of the normal paradigm. I think of Escher is really great at this, right? Like a lot of Escher's drawings or paintings have, the idea of the hand drawing the other hand and how that intricately makes you think of that process, or the rising staircase, how it's always going up. How is that possible? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think Nolan makes Escher painting movies. And we mentioned Charlie Kaufman earlier. He's the other one that dabbles in this. These are the two guys that I look at, the two directors that I look at and go, oh, you're tweaking something in my brain that I love to think about. And it's just the meta-ness of it, the way you think about time. Obviously, Nolan's thing for his entire career has been dealing with time and how time runs and how it works. And then you start dealing with issues that I love to think about, like free will versus determinism and how those play together and can they play nice together. And so all of that stuff is in this movie. And for that, above any other reason, I'm just going to love it because I love thinking about that stuff. Then you add to that incredible action shots. There's one moment in this movie, and I won't spoil it, but there's one moment towards the end of this movie that involves, I'm just going to say a building. That's as much as I'm going to spoil it. It just involves a building, and it is, I've never seen anything like it on screen. I've never even considered seeing anything like it on screen, and it blew my mind. And it just
how'd they do that?
Yeah, and I'm just not going to get that from most other movies. And so, yes, I loved it. Even coming away from it confused, I can say I loved it because, like you said, I definitely want to see it again. And I have this sneaking suspicion after I've seen it, 5 to 10 to 100 times, that my grade will go up. I have a sneaking suspicion that Nolan has done the homework. Yeah. And that it's all going to click at some point, because that's how I felt about Dunkirk. Honestly, Dunkirk was confusing to me the first time through too. And then the second time I saw it, I understood a little more. And then the third time I saw it, I saw how the different segments related even better. And so I just think his movies are meant to not be totally understood on the first time through. And I guess that's okay if that's the artist you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So
I want to throw out my last negative before I just gush all over this movie.
yeah, do it. Let's get the negatives out of the way.
I honestly think the first like 30 minutes of this movie are pretty rushed and even him-hawed a bit. Like to get to like I guess you could say the meat and potatoes of the movie. The first scene is great. I loved it. It was so much fun. But after that, there's like 20 minutes of just like rush, like trying to get to the movie. I'm like, slow down. This is the part that's trying to help me understand the movie, you know?
Yeah.
So even on my second viewing, I'm like, oh man, this is way too fast. I know the movie's already really long, and I don't think that you could really cut anything else from the movie, but I'd take an even longer movie if you just made those 20 minutes like even 30 minutes, you know?
Yeah, I don't agree with you 100% in that I didn't feel it. I understand what you're saying, but I didn't feel that in watching it. I never felt like something was too rushed, and I never felt like something was too slow in this movie either. I thought this movie was really well paced as far as my interest in it. I always felt like I had something to think about, and maybe what you're saying is during that time you were trying to process things, but it was moving too fast to really kind of understand what was going on. And yeah, I get that. I understand that. But it's not something I experienced. So it's something I could pay attention next time I view it. I really didn't have, other than the confusion, I honestly don't have any negatives even worth talking about.
No, let's get into it, man. Let's get into it.
There may be a moment here or there that I go, that could have been a little bit better. But I mean, it's minute. Let's start with the performances. I think they're astonishing all the way down the line. I think our main four, I'm going to throw Branagh in there, and I want to talk about him specifically after our main three. I think I enjoyed all four of those performances. Specifically, Robert Pattinson is so good in this. John David Washington is so good. Elizabeth Debicki is so great and also allowed to be tall in this movie. Thank you, movie.
Oh yeah.
It's so beautiful that I think they're finally letting go of some of these aesthetic things that movies have done forever, where the leading man has to be taller than the leading woman, and so they stand on boxes and shoot from different angles and all that kind of stuff. There are times in this movie where Debicki is towering over these men, and I love it. And it's great. So I really like that. Not to mention her performance is really believable, really beautiful. What did you think about those three performances, particularly?
Those three? I'm just going to echo everything you said. John David Washington's doing something pretty interesting here with this character. He is, he's us in the sense that he's experiencing this world for the first time, just like we are, but he's also bringing a lot of knowledge from his past job into it that still makes him a fascinating character to want to know more about. I really like the way he was focused and determined, and he had one goal. He's a singular. I'm going to get this done no matter what the cost. Robert Pattinson, he's just so charming. You can't not love the guy. But I'm going to say what you said, Elizabeth Debicki. I think she's giving probably what I would say is the second best performance in this movie.
Oh, I'm so excited for you to say that, because to me that indicates you're going to say that Kenneth Branagh has the best performance in the movie.
Hands down.
I love that you're saying
crazy.
That.
It's crazy good.
Listen, because it's interesting. There's a lot of scenery chewing that he's doing. And anytime you chew scenery, anytime you really go for it as a villain, that is risky. And I don't think it worked for some people. I've heard in the internet ethers that a lot of people are thinking it's a little too over the top of a performance. I totally disagree, and I'm glad that we're kind of on the same page of this. I think it really works. I found him believable. I always find his villains to be understated in a way that feels treacherous and traumatic, but also feels like there's something driving them. I don't know. I can't even explain to you what it is, because it's not like the movie itself is giving him...
it's just the fact that he's so theatrical. He comes from that theater background, that I think that classic sense of the villain And like you said, whenever you push, to like really bring a villain, to try and really make them, the truest evil that you could possibly, it's risky. But I think that
Yeah.
he's a talented enough actor, and I think Nolan told him like, "Hey, don't hold anything back. Just go for it, because I know you can do it." And he did it, man. I loved Kenneth Branagh in this so much.
I really enjoyed him as well. Like I was saying, there's something about his performance that even though the movie isn't giving him a ton of backstory or doing like flashbacks to inform his motives or those kind of things, that there's something about his performance that you believe he has a reason to be doing what he's doing. You believe it. You believe him and that he is, doing these things because of his, his predilections or reasons that maybe we don't know. Now, granted, there is some backstory that the movie does give him, but it's not motivational backstory. It's structural backstory. It's plot
Yeah,
backstory. So I do want to make that distinction because I can hear the internet comments now saying, "Wait, they do have a flashback." Yes, I know
yeah,
there is a Kenneth Branagh flashback, but it's not about necessarily his inner motivations. It's more plot based, but I believe those motivations are there just because I really believe that performance. So good. I'm glad you felt the same way.
yeah. And I think that it's his performance that allows DeBecky to like you really sympathize with this character, and she's still able to, yes, she's a victim in a lot of what's going on. I'm trying to, go around spoilers and stuff like
Sure. No,
that.
I get it. I
But
get it.
she's a victim in a lot of this, but at the same time, you feel a strength within her that is like, oh yeah, if he was the monster that he is, then she would be just the most powerful, person in the movie, like
Hmm.
just from like a presence, like she just carries herself so tall and but just whenever she's around him,
What other things do you want to talk about? We kind of mentioned the action. I at least mentioned one moment. I will say the action throughout the entire movie was captivating to me. There
yeah,
are three or four, maybe five, I think four set pieces that are they're just mind blowing. And that
yeah,
last piece is, that last set piece is going to be. I'm going to watch that. I don't know, 100 times in the next few
yeah.
years. Like it's just, I want to know. I want to understand it. I don't yet,
Yeah.
but I want to, and I feel like it's going to be rewarding to actually understand it down the line.
On a scale sense, yes, that's the one that I always go back to. Like, that's like you got to show that to somebody that or a scene from the movie. But honestly, there's a fight scene in this movie that I would say rivals even the Inception Joseph Gordon-Levitt fight scene
Sure.
in the twisting hallway.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a fight scene here with John David Washington. Uh, that I don't know how they did it. I've been even the second time going around, the second time for that fight scene, yes, I was still trying to enjoy it, but I was trying to figure out how they did it. I still can't figure out how they did it. I don't know how they did it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I have sneaking suspicions on how they had to have done it, but no, I was enveloped in it enough that I haven't. That I'm sure I say the same thing. I'm not sure how they did it either. Each of those moments are spectacular to me, so I think it delivers on action as well. We mentioned the soundtrack, which is always great with
Yeah,
Nolan stuff. Again, it's bombastic, and it's part of the reason the dialogue is hard to understand sometimes.
yeah,
Everybody's wearing masks because of apparently that's a thing that Nolan maybe Nolan predicted the pandemic. Who knows? Maybe
yeah,
that's why everybody wears masks in his movies. So that makes the dialogue harder to understand, to parse. But the sound design is compelling even if it's not uh clarifying, and I
yeah.
think maybe that's what Nolan prefers.
Well,
And I think
yeah,
I disagree with
because
him. I think I would prefer clarity, because I think you still get the interesting things going on, and the clarity allows you, I think, to experience the world better. But I just don't think he prioritizes it. I don't think it's important to him.
yeah. Uh, I'm gonna disagree with you on that front. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Clarity is something, just because there's so much confusing about this movie, you want one thing to make sense.
Yeah.
But I like what he did here, because I know what he's trying to do. He's trying to go for quote unquote a more realistic sense for sound and stuff like that. But at the same time, sometimes it makes you go, "What? I don't understand. Wait, what? Wait, I'm gonna have to watch this like 4 or 5 times just to, not even for sound effects, even for like a dialogue. You're like, wait, what? I'm gonna have to watch this like 4 or 5 times just try and figure out what's going on."
Yeah. Anything else you wanted to mention, Andrew?
No post credit scene.
No post-credit scene. We will obviously be doing a SIF spoil on this. It will be in your podcast feed. Again, if you do not subscribe to SIF Pop, if you're watching the live show, that is just SIFTPOP. Just search for that in whatever podcast player you use, and the spoilers will be there. We've been talking about doing spoilers for the live show. If we do, we will do them in a separate live stream that will have spoilers in the title, because we don't want anybody to click on a SIF Pop live show, not knowing that they may be getting spoiled on something. So, but for today, if you want to hear the Tenet spoilers, they will be a separate part of your SIF Pop podcast feed. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say either. So I think that about covers Tenet for us. You ready to move on to Mulan?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. When the Emperor of China issues a decree that one man per family must serve in the imperial army to defend the country from northern invaders, Hua Mulan, the eldest daughter of an honored warrior, steps in to take the place of her ailing father. Very, very similar plot to the Disney animated film Mulan. So imagine that. It's very, very similar plot. Although I'd say this one is more different than most of the Disney live action remakes. It strips out all of the actual musical singing in the movie, although it doesn't strip out all of those musical themes. They are throughout the score, which I did appreciate. And a lot of the comedy is stripped away. You don't have Eddie Murphy, you don't have Mushu, you don't have that type of stuff, and amps up the drama. Tries to make it feel more real, more authentic. What did you think, Andrew? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay?
I'm gonna go with a solid did not like it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the solid did not like it.
Okay, so that means close to hated it.
No, close to really didn't like it more.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
fair enough. I am going to go with a liked it. Just a real simple liked it. I had a good time with this movie. It was what I expected it to be, and I enjoyed seeing this story I know from the animated film in a different version. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I liked it. Why don't we start with kind of your general thoughts, Andrew? What are some of your general thoughts coming out of it that kind of made you land where you landed?
There's a throwaway line in this movie. If you remember from the animated film, where Mulan is getting ready to go and see the matchmaker, she's getting the makeup on and stuff like that, and she's walking with her sister to the matchmaker, and she says to her sister, I can't show any emotions. Like, this is my sad face, this is my confused face, this is my happy face, and they're all the same face. I didn't know that was foreshadowing for the entire movie for every single character. Where nobody was going to show any emotion whatsoever. Like, I got nothing from anybody, no emotion whatsoever. Everybody was just deadpan. And I know they're trying to go for a more serious, but people have emotion in serious films, And
do you think part of that might be cultural, though? Do you think the part of the and I don't know, so please excuse me for speaking out of turn, or out of turn. But I think there is something about Asian culture that is often you don't let your emotions show. It's more reserved. There's like a more honorable way than to be bombastic like we Americans love to be. So I think there may be a little East versus West kind of in that. And I think that the movie was probably, again, I don't know for sure, but trying to be authentic to the culture in that way. But I understand what you're saying. I get, we want a little more oomph in the acting a lot of times,
Yeah.
but it's not necessarily something that impacted me quite a bit. What else? What else were some of your thoughts?
Uh, I was wanting if they were going to be a more action oriented film, like more seriously action driving. I was wanting it to be better action because I don't think the movie did a really good job of choosing what style of action movie they wanted to do. If they wanted to do crazy CGI awesomeness, or if they wanted to do, the traditional wire work, that you see in a lot of Chinese films. They just threw in a whole bunch of different styles for action instead of just honing in on one really good one. The entire time I was watching this movie, I'm like, man, if they did a wire work movie like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, but like in Mulan, like the Mulan story, that movie would be amazing.
I
But
mean, didn't
there's
they
only
do
like
some of that though? Didn't they do
yeah,
some of
but
that?
that's my point. That's my point. They only have like one or two moments where they're doing that, and I'm like, yeah, you could have done a better job, and I would have.
So let me understand. Let me understand what's bothering you. Is it more that it was inconsistent with the type of action that it wanted to do, or is it just that you wanted more of that fantastical wire work stuff? And there wasn't enough for you. Do you understand the difference?
No.
Like,
Yeah. It's the inconsistency
okay,
of which one they want if they wanted to do. If they would have chosen, only to do wire work, or if they would have chosen only to do, like the cool high frame rate fight scenes, with some really cool CGI and stuff like that. Yeah, I would have been down for if they would have just decided. Then I would have been like, okay, I can get behind it. But once they keep switching back and forth, I'm like, okay, so which part is the ridiculous part? Or are they both ridiculous because I can't decide which one is the right one?
what do you mean by
But,
ridiculous? When you say that? What do you mean? Which part is the
okay,
ridiculous part?
so if you're doing like high action realism, like
Okay.
realistic fights and stuff like that,
Okay.
and then all of a sudden you throw in wire work, the wire work looks silly because it's
because then it feels inauthentic to the authentic action that you're shooting before.
yes,
Is what you're saying. Okay.
yes, and then you have scenes where if they would have done like the wire work or any like fantastical stylistic fighting choreography, anything like that, that in turn makes the rest of the CGI look like it's a well, I guess the movie doesn't want to be as beautiful is not the right word, but I think that if you like look at movies like Hero or Crouching Tiger or House of Flying Daggers or any of those, there's a beauty to the choreography. It evokes so much emotion because that's what those fight scenes are doing. They're trying to tell you something. So when you have those wire work scenes in this movie, they're like, okay, that could be beautiful or that could be stunning or anything like that. But then you cut to like tense action scene. It takes away from the artistic beauty of that scene before it. So I'm just saying personally for me, if they would have
Sure.
decided to do one or the other instead of just trying to combine the two, then I would have preferred that.
Okay. That's a fair point. It's not something that occurred to me and not something that impacted my viewing experience. So that makes a lot of sense then why we're so different. The two things that seem to and maybe there's more and we can get there, but the two things so far that you've talked about that negatively impacted you just weren't things that I even noticed. Like I didn't notice that inconsistency. I think for my brain, I thought that had to do with the characters themselves. And I think the movie talks about how they use their chi. And the characters that are more in touch with their chi were able to do some more of those fantastical things.
Yeah.
And that's only a couple characters, right? That's only it's two characters and then like a small army that is able to do that kind of stuff. And by small army, I mean like half a dozen people.
That's actually my biggest con with the movie.
Is that army? Is that small army?
No, the chi element of it.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. So again, not something that really occurred to me as a negative, but I will let you expound on that. But I did want to finish my thought, which is so for me, I'm watching the action, and when Mulan does something spectacular, it's not that it's out of place. It's just that she's had to hide it for so long. And now she's finally in a place where she can kind of let it go. And so she's still nervous about it. And so, those fantastical moments, I actually really dug. I really liked those moments where she was able to kick a spear or whatever the case may be, because she was able to be more in touch with, what made her strong, what made her powerful. So what is it with the chi that you didn't enjoy?
I could be totally wrong on this. It's just my personal opinion, so take that however you want to. I think that the chi element of this movie does a disservice to Mulan, because for me the entire story of Mulan is how women, or this woman, was able to walk amongst, an army of men, and not only being equal to them, but also,
Lead them.
in other areas. What?
Lead them. She was a
Yeah.
leader. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Not only being equal, but also be a leader to them,
Yeah.
And I think if you introduce this element of chi as this supernatural power, does it not negate or take away from what the story is trying to say, that the only reason why she as a woman is able to do the things she's doing is because she has this superpower chi? Isn't the movie trying to tell me that just it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, you can still be brave and fight and be powerful and stuff,
Yeah.
but she needs the superpower to be on a level playing field?
But it's not. So again, pardon us for speaking from ignorance because I haven't really studied it. But chi is not a superpower. It's not something only some people have.
From what I'm seeing, what she is doing in this movie, it's a superpower.
No. It allows people in this movie to do powerful things. The distinction I'm trying to make is I don't believe it is something only a few people, special people, have. I believe it is something that you can be more or less in touch with. And what I took from this movie, especially with her conversations with her father at the beginning, is women are not allowed to be in touch with their chi. They are not allowed to explore what that means, and to use that in a leadership way. Men are, and so it's not that what she is doing is unknown or unseen. It's just women aren't allowed to do that. So I do think the movie is still operating in the same themes. I think it's just with more of an emphasis on here is one of the ways that the women of this movie in this culture are suppressed, is that they are not allowed to show their true abilities, their true power. That's not for women. That's for men. That's because they're the ones that go to war. So yeah, I think that for me, I think that works just fine. I didn't see it as diluting the overall theme and message of Mulan. I think that's all still pretty strong there.
Yeah.
So yeah. Producer Phil chiming in says Aaron wanted "Let It Go" to be sung in this movie. No, Phil. No, it's not. It's not that. I didn't want "Let It Go" to be sung in the movie. Speaking of that, how did you feel?
I was really upset that "Make a Man Out of You" wasn't like
was good. That's exactly what I was going to ask. Is if you missed "Make a Man Out of You"? I know that's one of your favorites.
It's one of my favorite Disney songs, man. As soon as because I in the rest of the movie they did the whole was it My Reflection?
Mm-hmm.
When will my reflection? Yeah. They did the orchestral, without the singing, but it was in the background,
Mm-hmm.
But I was hoping like during the training montage, I just da 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 da. I was hoping for that, but I didn't get it, and I was like, oh man, wasted opportunity.
Yeah,
I need to say this just so people know: the animated Mulan is one of my favorite Disney movies.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
I think that's worth mentioning. Yeah, that is high on your list of Disney animated films. So
yeah,
that may filter into some things as well. I think it's not a surprise that I liked it more than you. Because
do you have any negatives?
Oh yes. Oh, most certainly. I have things about this movie that bring it down from a loved it to a liked it. I found this movie not necessarily because of the performances, but just because of the transition from my expectation of the animated Mulan to this. I felt an overall mutedness to this movie that this this is maybe too strong of a way to say it, but I got bored. I was bored through some of it, and it was just like I found the action really fun. I found the character work just fine, but the plot and the progress itself didn't. It seemed jumpy enough that it was like it would start and stop for me, and so I had these moments, these stretches where I was like waiting, kind of that twiddling your thumbs kind of thing that you'll feel. And so I don't know if that's pacing. I don't know if that's my mood. I don't know if that's because I watched it at home, because all of those things can have an impact on how you watch a movie. But yeah, I found myself reaching for my phone because I was at home, and it's like, no. Watch the movie, Aaron. You're supposed to be watching the movie. And so that happened a few times, and I think that's a negative. And I don't know what you do to combat that other than tighten it up a little bit, give a little more character work in those in-between moments. I think what was supposed to happen for that was we were supposed to be more invested in what is the female villain?
The witch, Xinjiang.
Jinglang, yeah. I loved that. It wasn't. There was something about it that it existed when it existed, but it didn't permeate the movie the way I think the movie wanted it to. And so I wasn't compelled to be thinking about that. I think maybe it's really simple, and that's okay, but I think it's just maybe really simple. I just think there's this thing going on where you have two strong females who are taking a different approach to a culture that is telling them not to be strong females, right? It's a great thing. It's a great concept. It's just a fairly simple concept. And so I wasn't compelled to keep thinking about that. And so when they would be on screen together, it would mean something to me, but it didn't mean anything to me when they weren't. I hope I explained that okay. So
No, I totally get it. And that in turn makes Jason Scott Lee a less of a villain. Because
yes.
And I like Jason Scott Lee. I think he's a great actor. And I was watching this going like, oh, so you're just misogynistic and evil.
Right.
Okay. Like they keep trying to throw out the reason why he's doing what he's doing. And I'm like, I'm not buying it. You know?
Yeah. The other thing I would mention on the pro side is I do think this movie is beautiful, pretty much from start to finish. I thought some of the shot selection and the framing and some of the movement of the camera, I really enjoyed the visual aspect of this movie. I'm really glad it seems like that is just a normal thing now. Cinematographers get it. Movies get it. Movies are gorgeous, and I love it. And it's just so fun. There's this beautiful moment. It's not much of a spoiler, and I don't know that we'll do a SIF spoil on this because obviously it's, you're pretty well known. The animated movie's been out there a while.
If you've seen the animated movie, yeah.
Although the way this movie handles some of those transitions of the animated film are, something worth experiencing. Yeah. But I lost my thought. What was I talking about? Because I got distracted. Andrew, do you remember what I was talking about?
Oh, don't ask me, man. I have a goldfish memory. We were talking about one last thing. You said that before we moved on, you wanted to talk. You were talking about the beauty of this movie, how cinematographers get it.
I was talking. It may have been a spoiler, but it's not really much of a spoiler. But there's this one moment where Mulan has this, let's just say this is wrong, but let's just say a pet. Mulan has a pet in this movie. It's a very symbolic tag along in this
gorgeous
movie. And it is spectacular, this moment where almost the two kind of become one for a second visually. And it's
I'll call it a Game of Thrones moment.
It's a really powerful, beautiful thing. And so I did want to give the movie props overall visually. I think that it's good. All right. I think we're good, unless you have anything else you wanted to mention, Andrew?
No post-credit scene.
Well, that'll do it. All right. Before we head on to the best ever challenge, just a reminder that SIF Pop is a thing because amazing people just like you support it at Patreon. Patreon.com/SiftPop. It's the reason the video show can exist. It's the reason the website can keep producing content. So the articles and the best ever challenges as they happen at siftpop.com are a direct result of amazing people who say, you know what, I've got $3 a month that I can help you guys see movies and get the equipment you need and do the things you need to do. So if you want to support what goes on here, both at the podcast, the website, we appreciate you. Lots of interesting things going on. Some updates coming for our SIF Pop members. Support starts at $3 a month. There's different levels, different kind of fun stuff we do for the different levels of support. You can go check that out at Patreon. Patreon.com/SiftPop, SIFTPOP. All right, let's get on to the best ever challenge, Andrew.
Let's do it.
We are doing best ever movies that start and end with the same letter. Now, we are doing this at the website as well. That article is already up at sifpop.com. Our amazing SIFPOP writers have picked their choices. I will say they had more choices because they included...
They get 10.
They did do 10. They always do 10. But I mean, we allowed them to use the word the at the beginning. But here on the podcast, we are disallowing articles. It has to be first letter, last letter without the word the at the beginning. So,
the way I took that is if there's a word in the title that is the, I just moved on to the next letter. Is that not where you went?
No. That's fine. I will accept that. That would have added a few to mine probably, but I went with just, but no, I think that's an acceptable way to look at it. I have no problem with that. That's just not what I did. I think there are so many choices that I went with completely devoid of starting with the word the.
I have a list of of honorable mentions here.
See if you can guess some of ours in the chat. I would love to see some of your choices. Movies that start with the and end with the same letter, in honor, of course, of the palindromic Tenet. So let's start at number 5. We'll work our way up to number 1, Andrew. What do you got first? What's your number 5?
Well, mine is going to take us to L.A. inside the Nakatomi Plaza. I'm going to go Die Hard.
Die Hard's a great choice. It's in my honorable mention.
Oh, man, I love this movie. John McClane. I mean, Is Hans Gruber one of the greatest villains ever?
Yes.
The correct answer is yes.
Yes. That is yes, objectively.
Yeah. No, Alan Rickman is great in it, and I love John McClane. He's a great hero. And then the dynamic of McClane and Reginald Val Johnson's character, just the two cops who just understand each other. It's a great action movie. I love it.
Yeah. Good choice. Definitely in my honorable mentions.
Your number 5.
My number 5 is one I don't know that a lot of people would have had on their list, but this is a movie I really liked when it came out, despite a lot of people not enjoying it. And I have loved more every single time I've watched it. It is now one of my favorites. It is Ad Astra, comes in at my number 5. This is one of those movies for me that the more I watch it, the more like we talked about earlier, the more I zone
the bad
in.
Brad Pitt movie, yeah.
The good Brad Pitt movie. Andrew, what are you talking about? So yeah, I tune in more and more to how beautiful this allegory is, how beautiful this metaphor is, and this idea of a movie that is really kind of about the search for God and who God is in your life, under the auspices of this Brad Pitt astronaut character who's trying to find his dad, who is in the outer reaches of space. Man, it is a really tightly woven and intricate metaphor, and I pick up new things every time I watch it. And it just, for somebody who loves to think philosophically about ideas of religion, creation, mystery, all those things, it's right up my alley. So Ad Astra continues to increase in my mind and is in at my number 5. What's your number 4?
I'm gonna go with, this is one of my the movies.
Okay.
Just so clear, The Silence of the Lambs.
Good. Yeah.
I think what else can be said about this movie? Hannibal Lecter, one of the greatest villains of all time. Jodie Foster, Clarice Starling, one of the greatest heroes of all time. You got Ted Levine playing, Buffalo Bill, super creepy, super great. This movie, none of the Lecter movies are for the faint of heart. You got to go in with a pretty strong stomach to able to watch them, I think. But they're great.
Yeah. Silence of the Lambs is an incredible film. Just an incredible film. That is an S movie, and we now enter a streak of 4 in a row for me. All the rest of my lists are all S movies, which you would expect. I mean, it's one of those things where a lot of the choices are because plural words end in an S, and so all it has to do is begin in an S, and you're good to go.
I didn't think you'd have Starship Troopers this high up, but okay.
Yeah. Who would have guessed it? Starting with at number 4 is where I have Sneakers, which we've talked about many times before. One of my favorite.
If I remember, let me know if it's the one I'm thinking about.
Well, you're gonna have to tell me the one you're thinking about, but this is the Robert Redford, Dan Aykroyd. River Phoenix is in this. It's really like a spy kind of thing where these guys are trying to figure out. And there's also, I also love talking about this in conjunction with a Nolan movie because there is code breaking in this movie and interesting ways of playing with words and anagrams and those kind of things that happen in Sneakers. So it tweaks that part of my brain as well. But I always have a fun time watching this one, so I thought I would mention it at number 4.
No, I was thinking of Sleepers, not Sneakers.
Ah, yes.
Close
no,
enough.
that's my number 1. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
What's
call.
your number 3, right?
Yep, I'm gonna go Good Will Hunting.
Good choice in my honorable mentions. Probably my first honorable mention.
Yeah, it's great. Robin Williams giving probably one of the best performances of his entire career. It's powerful. As a janitor, it made me wonder at one time if I was really good at math and I just didn't know it. The answer is no.
Yes,
turns out.
No, that is definitely something that's connected to your vocation. That is down the line. Yeah, janitors realize that they are actually genius mathematicians. So
yes,
even if you haven't discovered it yet, Andrew, you'll discover it at some point.
Oh, good. I know it's on the horizon, then I have something to look forward to. Good.
Yeah.
But no, great performances. The fact that that Matt Damon and Ben Affleck did what they did to get this movie made, and they somehow got Robin Williams in it because they weren't anybody before this movie. They weren't anybody.
Well, let's be fair. They were still human beings who are valued and worthwhile just for being human beings, right?
That's nothing. No, but the fact that they pulled it off and that they won some Oscars, well-deserved Oscars, good for them.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Yeah. It's one of those fun, stories that you don't often get to hear of, that kind of out of nowhere couple guys write a screenplay. Honestly, we probably make it more out of nowhere than it actually is. They both had careers before that movie. They were already acting and doing that kind of stuff. But
I don't think before this movie they were as well known as they were after this movie.
No, they definitely weren't household names for sure. But yeah, it's a fun story, and the movie's great. Beyond everything else, the movie's just great.
Oh, it's powerful. It's not your fault scene gets me every time.
Speaking of powerful movies, the powerful movie of how a bunch of kids in Germany defeated Nazism with swing dancing. Swing Kids in at number 3 for me for the best ever challenge. Any chance I get to mention Batman swing dancing, I will mention it. This movie is amazing. If for no other reason, I will keep mentioning it. So maybe we'll get even a Blu-ray of it someday. This movie does not exist in high definition yet, and that is frustrating to me on multiple levels. So one of my favorites came out right at the right time for me to love it, and I certainly do. So Swing Kids, Robert Sean Leonard, Christian Bale, and many others you might know. So
Christian Bale really loved his musicals back then, didn't he?
Yeah. In the chat, Danae says, "Dear God, Aaron, we are not surprised." Yeah. I hear you. All right. What do you got at your number 2?
I'm going to go. This is my second and last of the movie. Okay. I'm going to go with The Departed. Yeah. I know you're not really a fan of this movie.
I'm not.
Yeah. I think that this is Jack Nicholson's best performance of his entire career, even greater than A Few Good Men. And speaking of Matt Damon, great performance. But really, it comes down to what I think is DiCaprio and Jack Nicholson just giving those performances. And I know he's doing the Whitey Bulger character, and okay, I take that back. Because you got to throw Mark Wahlberg in there because I love Mark Wahlberg's character so much in this.
And
I think
Baldwin,
just
right?
across,
And Baldwin too, right?
and
And Alec
Baldwin's in
Baldwin.
this too. Yeah,
Yeah.
Baldwin's great. I think across the board, Famke Jensen, yeah, everybody's great in this movie. But for me, it's the those three: Wahlberg, Jack Nicholson, and DiCaprio. I had not seen Infernal Affairs before I saw this movie, so I was just utterly shocked when everything went down in this movie. Like, oh, I did not see any of this coming. Between the two, I do think that The Departed is a better movie than Infernal Affairs, but yeah.
Well, there you go. So we're on to my number 2 then.
Yep.
My number 2 is Signs.
That's my first honorable mention, so yeah.
Yeah, number 2 is Signs for me. Again, another movie that has themes of religion and mystery and God and those kind of things wrapped up in an alien movie by a director that at the time was absolutely slaying the Hitchcock vibe and figuring out how to make fun, twisty stories. And I believe Signs is one. For many people, Signs is, I think, his last great movie. I completely disagree. I really love 3 movies after that from him.
I think that is it Unbreakable? No, yeah,
Unbreakable
no, that came
was
out
before
after.
that. Yeah, Unbreakable was his second. But yeah. So I think it went Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, Signs, and then I think it went The Village. And I think The Village is where a lot of people started getting off of the ship, and then Lady in the
That was
Water,
me.
and so that kind of thing. So, but anyhow, Signs is great. Give it a chance, even if you aren't an M. Night fan. I think you'll enjoy it. Not River Phoenix, excuse me. Joaquin Phoenix in this is just astonishing in some of his stuff. So there you go.
Yeah. I think the only good movie Shyamalan has made since then was Split. I didn't like Glass. And I didn't. What was the? What'd you say the one that he did before Split was? The one with the grandparents.
Oh yeah. I forget what it's called, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I hear that one's good. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's all right. I thought we saw that together and reviewed it. Why am I thinking? I thought that's interesting.
Not me, said the rabbit.
Must have been a different Andrew. All right, we're on to
my number 1.
Your number 1, yeah.
No Country for Old Men.
Yeah, that's a good choice. It's in my honorable mentions.
Top 5 greatest movies of all time. Javier Bardem. What else needs to be said?
Just the name.
Yeah. The what I consider what's the most you've ever lost in a coin toss in the gas station scene. I think that for me that is the most tense-inducing scene of any movie I can think of. I when I wrote this down, I'm like, I racked my brain. I'm like, I can't think of any other movie where I was so nervous and like just uncomfortable with what was happening as that scene. It's just two guys talking. Oh, he's terrifying in that movie. Utterly terrifying.
Yeah, No Country for Old Men is great. It's definitely one worth watching. My first is one that you may have not had on your list because it went through a title change after its release, or maybe you just didn't have it that high. But my number 1 is Star Wars. I had
that's
Star Wars. It's technically now Star Wars: A New Hope, but it wasn't always. When it came out in 77, it was just called Star Wars, and so I decided to go ahead and count it. And I don't know that there's anything left to be said about Star Wars that hasn't been said a million different ways, a million different times, and with a million different emotions. Because apparently it is a movie that people are such huge fans of that they get really emotional about it. But that original changed movies. It is a seismic movie. We talk about those sometimes. Movies that actually change all of moviedom, and Star Wars is one of those movies. And you can still see it reverberating through film today. So, had to mention Star Wars.
Let's go. That's the only reason I didn't have it on my list, is because I just took that as like a title, and then there was like the subtitle, like A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back. But if I did, it'd probably be my number 1.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go to the honorable mentions. I will let our chat lead the way with one I didn't even think of that you might have and have had in your honorable mentions. Jay said, I don't love this movie, but I do enjoy it. Moonrise Kingdom. Yeah, no, I love Moonrise Kingdom. That's
Yeah,
definitely one.
that
That's
was
just
on my
one.
list.
That's one I just happened not to think about. So thank you for that. Lauren says Sideways. Had that in my honorable mentions.
That was my number 7. Yep.
So yep, great call there. So yeah, thank you for chiming in with some of those. What are some other ones you had, Andrew?
1 Hour Photo, a terrifying Robin Williams movie, but I think it's really good.
I had that one as well.
A staple of everybody's cinematic viewing experience, The Breakfast Club. The Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah, you're doing those the movies, so I don't have any of those, but yeah.
Yeah. Dread. I love Dread so much. Dread is so good.
Dread. I did not have Dread.
Eddie the Eagle.
Sure, yeah, I didn't have that one down, but because I didn't think of it.
Yeah. Dazed and Confused.
Yeah, I had that one.
Starship Troopers. I mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
8 Mile.
Yeah, except I didn't count that one because it's the number 8. But that's
is it?
That's just me being silly, but yeah,
hey.
it works if you spell it out.
Willow.
Yeah, I definitely had Willow.
Yeah. Spaceballs.
Mm-hmm. Had that as well.
Super Troopers.
Didn't have that one. That one's all
you. And I thought about putting National Lampoon's Vacation, but it kind of did the Star Wars thing where National Lampoon's isn't really the title of the movie.
Right.
Yeah, so.
No, that's a good choice, though. It's a good choice. Unmentioned in the honorable mentions that I have, and again, if you've got ones that you've thought of, please comment on them. Love to know. But L.A. Confidential. I think
oh, man. How did I forget about it? That would have made my list.
Yeah. Spartacus is worth mentioning. Hitch is a fun movie. Love and Basketball. Yankee Doodle Dandy.
Yeah.
Yankee Doodle Dandy is one of my favorite old movies. Legends of the Fall, I mentioned. Enemy of the State. Terms of Endearment. I'm surprised you didn't mention Face Off. I thought that would maybe be
greatest movie of all time.
Greatest movie of all time. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Probably worth mentioning.
Oh, man, that's a good one.
Yeah, and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Also wanted to mention that one as well. And host emeritus Danae chiming in, The Lord of the Rings. I know it doesn't work, but it's always the best. So fair enough.
But she's right.
Fair enough. She's right. She's always right.
We'll find a way to make it work.
Yeah. We'll just. Is there another L even in there? Lord of the Nope, there's not even an L in there. Two Towers.
No, we're gonna make it the Slords of the Rings.
There you go. Slords of the Rings. There you go.
Yes.
All right, let's move on and finish off with our buried treasure. Andrew, what's that one thing in any area of pop culture that you want to make sure people know about?
If you remember from last month or so, I was kind of on a old Kurosawa samurai movie, binge where I was just watching all the old greats, and it got me thinking: are there any good modern samurai movies out there that I could really recommend to people? And then I remembered there is one, and I rewatched it just to make sure it's good. It's good. I'm gonna go 13 Assassins.
Okay, all right.
Have you seen this one?
If I have, I don't remember it.
An incredibly violent and graphically violent movie. So I want to make sure I'll let people know up front, if you are not a fan of that kind of stuff, it definitely does go for realism, like what a katana does to a person. But it's kind of a modern take on Seven Samurai, but there's something new about it, and they say it's one of those. What was the movie we recently watched? The One and Only Ivan, where it says it's based on a true story.
Mm-hmm, yeah,
and you're like, okay, that's pretty a loose depiction of what based on a true story could mean. I guess
starts with talking animals based on a true story.
Yeah.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah, this is better than that, but not much better than that. There's no talking animals, but it bends history to the will of a good action movie, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
I think what I'm trying to say is there are historical people in this movie, and that's about as far as they go with what those people actually did.
Yeah.
But it's a great movie. I know it sounds like I'm ragging on it, but it's a very emotional, dark movie, but there's a hope to it that kind of like you get with Seven Samurai. I really recommend this one. I think it's super good.
Nice. I'll have to check it out. I got around to seeing the Apple TV Plus documentary, Boys State. This is the story of a Texas version of what is called Boys State. It's a program that the American Legion does, where at least this version in Texas brings young men, high school-aged boys together to try to create their own government. And this is a really fascinating watch because you get a look at all that is good and horrible about teenage boys. Like, I shouldn't say all, not all that is good and horrible, but the idea that many of them are just, treating this as a game, which is understandable because it's not like they're really becoming governor or whatever. And just so you know how it works, they divide into two parties, and then those parties nominate different positions that are equivalent to actual state positions, like House of Representatives,
Okay.
Senate, a governor, those kind of things. And pretty much it follows the two different parties and their race, their gubernatorial race. And you get to know these different boys. And when I say it's the good and the bad, the good is that some of these kids really do care, and you can see that they're really dealing with the idea of politics in a two-party system and how that forces you to say you believe things maybe you don't believe because you need to get votes, and it really forces them to reckon with, or could force them to reckon with. Again, not all of them do. In fact, I would say probably a lot of them don't. But the ones who do reckon with this idea of how do you maintain integrity? How do you maintain core beliefs when you're in a system that rewards unity of belief in party, putting party over yourself, those kind of things. I take away my own stuff from it. I have political beliefs that I'm not shy about the idea that I think the two-party system is broken, and I believe we need reformation within the system itself to quell a lot of the division that we see. So, as I watch it, I'm thinking this is a great example of exactly why a two-party system will always result in us versus them. It will always result in division, and it's the kind of system that we have set up. I do believe there are ways to change that. That is not what this podcast is for. This podcast is for me telling you that Boys State is a really good watch and really well done. And it's one of those things where you do fall in love with the passion of these kids and those kind of things. So it's worth a watch. And it's definitely one I think you'll have conversations after with those you watch it with, because it brings up some thoughts on important stuff and what we believe. I should also say, because it is Texas, there is definitely a right lean to the politics of most of these boys. And so there is a lot of, vehement stuff about gun, not taking our guns away and that kind of stuff, which you would expect in Texas, in that culture. So I would just give that as a literal trigger warning, I guess, in case you want to know what you're getting into. But yeah, I would recommend Boys State. Unfortunately for many, it is on Apple TV Plus, and I know there are some who don't. But maybe you get Apple TV Plus and you don't even know it, because they give it away for free to anybody who has who's bought an Apple product in the last year.
Yeah.
So you may have access to it without knowing it.
When you first started talking about it, I thought it was a documentary on the what was it, the Stanford prison experiment? Do you remember that?
Yes.
Whole thing?
Yeah.
I thought that's what it was initially when you were talking about, but
no.
Then you said they became like a representative, some stuff. I'm like, nope, that's not what happened in that horrible study.
No, not at all. Some comments in the chat. Some of the boys are pretty despising to watch, but some of them you genuinely like and want to succeed. Yeah. That is the case. That is a lot of what goes on there.
That is politics.
That is, yeah. It's humanity in many ways, and it shows itself in all sorts of different places. So that is why optimism remains so important. And I optimistically say, we did it, Andrew. We did another podcast. It has happened. Another SIF Pop exists and is in the books. Thanks to you. We appreciate you. Thanks so much for joining us today for Sif Pop. It is part of the Studio DNA Podcast Network. You can find out more about other shows on the network at studiodna.media, or you can search Studio DNA in your podcast player. Huge thanks to Andrew for hanging out today.
Thank you, buddy.
Huge thanks to producer Phil for producing the video and audio show. We love you, Phil.
Thanks, Phil.
Much love and gratitude to our Sif Pop members for giving monthly to make Sif Pop a real thing. I should throw out a thanks to Drew, who has done a lot of the graphics that you see in the podcast as well. So thank you. Appreciate that very much. Support starts at $3 a month for our Patreon members. You get access to every bonus episode as well as some other fun perks. Find out more at patreon.com/SifPop. Lots of ways to connect with the podcast. Feel free to comment, rate, or leave a review at Apple Podcasts. We appreciate that, or wherever you listen. You can also tweet at us. I'm at Aaron Dicer. At SifPop exists as well. So you can tweet at both those places or email us at feedback@sifpop.com. And finally, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like it too, so let them know about it and that listening is much easier than understanding a Christopher Nolan film forwards and backwards. We will be back next week, probably with the Kaufman movie. I know there's other stuff coming out as well, so we haven't landed completely, but we'll be talking pop culture and movies, and we'll see you then. We will continue the live stream here just for a second. Phil, hope I caught you before you click the end broadcast. Just to take a few questions if you have them. If not, we'll continue on our merry way. Really appreciated everybody hanging out with us today. Saw Lolly in the chat. Always
The
great.
Visit. That's that movie.
Yes, I was going to say, the chat said Visit. Red Shirt in the chat says Santa Claus conquers the Martians. Which is a nice first letter, last letter movie. So I saw that. I wanted to bring that up.
I don't know what movie's going on my list of things to see.
Jay Bourgeois says, Badger Boys State alum. Don't have Apple Plus, so haven't watched the doc, though. This is another thing I was surprised with the documentary, is there are a lot of people who have gone through this program. So yeah, it's one of those things I didn't even know existed, but apparently a lot of people.
Isn't it like an annual thing, or was it a one-time thing?
No, I think it's an annual thing. I think it's an annual thing all over the country. And my understanding is in some states it's also mixed gendered as well. It's not just for boys. And in fact, even in Texas, they have a girls version. They just don't mix the genders. Because can you imagine? Taco Cat, best palindrome, says Danae. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
So
I like tacos and I tolerate cats. So
let's see. Jay says, have you guys watched the new season of The Boys yet? No, I have not.
First
on it,
two episodes, yeah.
Yeah. It might come up on a future show. Also saying they should do a Girl State sequel. I think that's right. I really do think that would be something that they could do. Jay Bourgeois says, annual thing sponsored by the American Legion. Wisconsin has boys and girls separate. My mom chiming in. Favorite, Fiddler on the Roof fits.
You and my mom would get along swimmingly. That's her favorite movie too.
Yeah, Fiddler on the Roof is great. So yeah. I think technically it's The Fiddler on the Roof, but we were counting those anyway.
No, I think it's Fiddler on the Roof. I don't think it's the.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Growing up, my mom would just be in the kitchen making like food or something. She'd be like, "If I were a rich man."
Yeah, exactly. I saw it on Broadway with Topol.
That was great.
Oh, it was amazing. It was absolutely astonishing. His Tevye is just so perfect. Okay. Seeing no others, thank you. Thank you for your time hanging out with us today. We're going to record spoilers for Tenet, and those will be in the podcast feed. So love you all. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next time.
Bye.